Hey friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Leslie Tucker and I have a series called Reseller's Truths that I will be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of things I have experienced so far in my reselling career. I hope that you enjoy this series and come back for more. If you really love what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button. Thanks, friends. Hey friends, a couple weeks ago I started a series called Reseller's Truths, and I talk about things that I've done in the past, mistakes I've made as a reseller. Yes, I've made them. I've made them too, and it was such a great response that I decided to do them every week. Usually Thursday is my release date. I'm trying to stick with that. So, this week I want to talk about sourcing. How I started sourcing and what I started sourcing. Yeah, and do I still have some of those things? Okay, you might see me take a sip of coffee or a sip of water. I'm dealing with allergies right now, so this is totally organic and not as unscripted as everything that I do. So, oh, excuse me. I'm working on more content. If you don't follow me on YouTube, stop by my YouTube channel or Reseller's Passion and subscribe. This video will probably be on IGTV and YouTube. I'm trying to cross post all of the content that I'm making these days. So you're going to see me all over. And again, if you haven't been following me, I have probably 60 videos over on YouTube. Some of them are really old, but it's a lot of great content from the time I started a year ago, last January 2019. And I just started releasing more content. Okay. So let's talk about sourcing. When I first started reselling, it's going on 4 years. It'll be 4 years in April. And I started reselling. I talk about it often because I just wanted to spend time with my husband. I didn't know anything about reselling. I knew about thrifting because I grew up, because we had some financial challenges. So I grew up on thrift stores and I raised my children on thrift stores. You can find really great things. So I've never had an issue shopping at thrift stores. When I met my husband 8.5 years ago, they were just opening up a brand new outlet. For those who don't know what the outlet is the bins. For those who don't know what the bins is, the outlet. For me, it was the outlet. I didn't know it was the bins until I started getting active in this community. Even Thomas was like, what is the bins? So my children were always used to going. They would take a cart and fill their cart up and pick out all their clothes for the school year. And they did that for a while. And they still like to go on occasion, but not as much, because it's like the two that are still home are teenagers and they're like, yeah, whatever. So I didn't source. My husband sourced for me. So I just said, oh, I want to start reselling, but I'm working. I don't really have time. I don't know anything about what kind of things to sell. Going from a handmade seller to a reseller, I didn't know. And he was already selling things, but I wasn't thinking in terms of the fact that he was really only selling men's items. He wasn't selling women's clothes. So I said, just bring me whatever you want to bring me. And he was bringing me like some crazy stuff. I wish that I held on to a lot of that stuff, because it was some great vintage things. I would just look at it and go, I would keep the majority, probably about 85% of the items he brought me, I would keep. And then I would sell them on Poshmark. Back then, Poshmark was a little bit different. We're talking 2016. So people were like buying things, plus my prices weren't very high. So I did not start sourcing until like a year later. And the reason why I started sourcing a year later, because that's when I finally started taking it seriously. Almost exactly a year from the date that I started selling was when I started really considering that this could be a full-time business for me. And so I decided that I had to get a little bit more involved myself in order to make it successful, in order to see if I could take this thing to another level. I'll take a sip of my coffee. Oh, you see my mug. Oh, this got coffee on it. My namaste cat. Anyway, so I started sourcing. We were primarily going to the bins. Now, when I started going to the bins with Thomas, it was not packed at all. There weren't a lot of people. But then I took a little time off because I became a supervisor later. I was a supervising lunch lady, so I was working a little bit more, and I wasn't able to go with him to the bins as much as I used to before. Now, mind you, I would go to the bins, but I wasn't sourcing. I was just going with him as his sidekick, basically, just, picking up some stuff for the house or whatever. So I really was not looking at anything for myself. So when it was probably about a year that I hadn't been, and I went with him, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, it was so many people there, because people are buying stuff to send back in bulk to different countries, people from Africa, people from Mexico. So it was really crazy. So I kind of was like hesitant of going. So I stopped going to the bins and started going to the retail stores. One thing that I did do was only go to the retail stores when they had sales, or only do the color of the day, which was like 50% off. But I didn't really know anything about fashion, so I was working on the cute factor. Does anybody know about the cute factor? Like, oh, this is cute, I think this will sell. I didn't know anything about checking comps or anything like that. I'm telling you, like, literally going from my husband bringing me things to saying, oh, I think this could sell, and listing it, and only because I was listing stuff for like between $5 and maybe $10. I had $5 items, $6 items, $8 items, $10 items. So I knew nothing about checking comps, anything like that. Again, handmade seller. I knew what I wanted to charge for my stuff because I put in the work. So I could charge, $50, $60 for a hat and scarf set. But I didn't know about checking comps. I didn't know about brands or anything like that. So as the community learns, I learned as well. So the stuff that I'm teaching you or talking about is the stuff that I had to learn and experience on my own. And I want people to understand that, like, I didn't just appear. I started at the beginning like everyone else. So I would go in there and come home with like $100 worth of like cute stuff, but then get home and list it and wondering why it wasn't selling. So then I started mixing it up and being brave, going to the bins again, going and getting like poundage of items, and still wasn't checking comps. Now, the cool thing about where I live at, just 30 minutes over the Delaware border in Pennsylvania, there is an outlet store, which is a combined retail store. So you go into one door and you can split. And so it's really small, the outlet, but I had a system. So my budget was only like $100. I went every 2 weeks then. And so I would take $100, go into the outlet side, and my goal was to only spend about $60. And so I would go and my cart would be piled. And back then it was more quantity than quality. So I would go through, start tossing stuff into my cart, because I would go through and say, girl, this is cute. Why didn't that person before me pick it up and toss it into my cart? Now, by then I had also been selling on eBay. So it was a little bit easier to almost kind of buy anything for eBay than it was for Poshmark. So that is where I convinced myself that I could buy things. I was buying scuba outfits and, oh my gosh, all kinds of like sweaters and stuff. Some of the things that I learned from Thomas, but some of the things that I just knew that would sell. I didn't care. I was like, this is the bins. It cost me like 80 cents or whatever. So I'd spend an hour on one side, and then my budget, when I left, most of the time it was $55 to $60 that I spent, because it's by the pound, $1.39 a pound. If you purchase over 50 pounds, and it became $1.19. So I would take those items, put them in my car, and then go into the retail store and spend the remaining money. And that's when I would just go through and pick some stuff out and get a couple pairs of shoes and then be on my way. Then I had to get home and steam and all that, but I'll talk about that on another video. But what I found was my items were not moving. And so I started kind of like researching and watching videos and things. And then it would be these resellers like, oh man, I sold like Free People, and I sold Reformation and all this other stuff. And then I started wasting my time looking for those items, because this person, they're making a lot of money, so they must know something. So I'm going out, and the next thing I know, I had like all this Free People. I can't get rid of that Free People. I could not get rid of Free People. Other thing I learned about sourcing, small items didn't work for me. It may work for you, wasn't working for me. Just because it's Free People, like, and it was weird, I was only finding Free People in small or extra small. I could not move that stuff no matter what I did. Seriously. So I had to sit down and have a talk with myself and say there has to be a better way. So literally in the mid 2018, I started kind of looking at videos and learning more about comps and things like that, and how to comp. And if people don't know what comps are, they're comparison. You're comparing what you have and what you want to sell to what has already sold on an existing platform, you're comparing. Comps is just a short word for comparing. So you're comparing prices. And that's what I had to learn how to do. So then I started digging deep, learn how to comp, and only started picking up quality items, especially when I went to the bins. Instead of getting 50 pounds, there are times that I walk out only spending $25 now. And then my items are moving a little bit better than they were before. So hopefully you've learned from this. Don't just pick anything up. Start picking up quality and not quantity. My name is Leslie, and this is My Reseller Truth.